She is a freelance editor, mindset coach, and self proclaimed coffee shop enthusiast who lives in Bangalore and can often be found at your nearest cafe with a hot mug of tea. Her debut novel, Match Me If You Can, released in June 2024 with Penguin India. In her free time, she loves curling up on the couch with a good romance novel or singing Taylor Swift songs on the stage at karaoke night. Can we give her a round of applause, please? And last, we have Koral ma'am with us, who's been here on our other sessions. So welcome back, ma'am, today. Koral Dasgupta is an accomplished author and content creator for over 20 years of experience. Her diverse work spans academic nonfiction to relationship dramas, focusing on gender narratives and complex human emotions. She founded www.tellmeyourstory.biz, a platform that uses literature to inspire social engagement and drive behavioral changes of inclusion and diversity. She designs and executes learning programs, conducts writing workshops, and curates content for events focused on gender and mythology. She was an advisory member of the Central Board of Film Certification. She has released her 5-book Sati series, a retelling of story of the Pancha Kanya from Indian mythology. She was shortlisted for Sahitya Academy Awards in 2023. Welcome.
Hello, everybody, and I hope that as we speak, a few more who are standing would like to join in. We have two very young authors, and we would love to hear what is happening in the printed pages of their books, which discuss love stories. And I am not a millennial, so I am probably one generation beyond. So I am feeling like an auntie who is there to understand what is happening half a generation down the line. Before we get into your books, Swati and Claire, I would like to understand from you guys what are the kind of love stories that you may have experienced or heard in real life which made sense to you or something that inspired you, moved you to be able to become that author today who would again inspire back with their love stories. It could be from books, it could be from life. What is yours?
I don't know if the mic is working. All right, great. I was kind of feeling like a boomer, wondering whether the mic would work or not. Anyway, Claire, if you don't mind, I'll answer this first. All right. So, I actually don't think there was a specific story or like a movie or anything that inspired me to start writing romance. In fact, I actually think it was Bollywood that inspired me to write romance that was not like the typical Bollywood, movies that we see where the guy falls for the girl at first sight and then he's like, I must have this woman, and then he chases her down and finally convinces her to fall in love with him, and she reluctantly agrees, and then eventually she's like, oh wait, no, he is the soulmate and he's the love of my life. And I think I grew up watching these movies, and of course when you're a kid you kind of feel like, yeah, okay, that's how it should be. But then I realized, no, that's not how it should be at all. And I think one thing I'm really trying to do with my books is write, male main characters and heroes who are not toxic, who are actually, if a woman tells them, no, I don't want to be with you, they're like, I understand that, that's all right, and they walk away. And obviously, watching Bollywood at this young age, you kind of have this idea in your head of that's how it should be. But in my opinion, I think love is about consent. Love is about joy and hope and just feeling at home with a person. And if you have to chase someone to get them to be with you, that is not love. And that's exactly the reason why in my books, I don't have a copy of my book with me right now, unfortunately, but in my books, my current debut novel as well as the future books to come, I will always write, I call them heroes that are sweet as honey and heroines who are like strong as hell. So that's what I like to write. So, Koral, in response to your question, unfortunately, nothing inspired me to write romance the way I saw it. I just decided to turn it around and write romance the way I think it ought to be. So, yeah.
Superb. Claire, please, yours.
Thank you for that question, Coral. Did you know that my first book was called No Boyfriend Since Birth? So that's a very funny title for a book, but it's true. I kind of fell into the business of writing romances by accident. I now write literary fiction, but my previous 5 books were sort of romances, and these stem from a lot from stories that I hear from my friends. And for example, no boyfriend since birth. That is a very real thing in the Philippines. Like, women cannot make ever the first move, and so they're stuck waiting for their crushes, for the people that they yearn for. They're stuck waiting for them to make the first move. So I think for me, what has evolved writing about love, I wanted to write love um, as something empowering. That love will empower you, actually. And that was the gist of my first book. Now, for my latest romance, which is called Sudden Superstar, this one, and this is another topic, theme of love that really resonates with me. It's about loving oneself. I also have a book called Miss Makeover. It's about loving yourself in all its raw, naked glory. And so love is really much about loving yourself first before being able to give that kind of love back to any other person. Thank you.
Wonderful. Swati, you have already touched upon it, and I would be very happy if you delve into it a little more. Men, the portrayal of men in cinema, in
Yeah.
stories, in literature, has always been about those, that toxic power that
The
you spoke
alpha
about,
male.
the alpha male, who is very impractical, who cannot be loved, and who intimidate. They dominate, right?
Yeah.
It is absolutely the time that we we change the nature of that hero, the portrayal of that hero, and bring up heroes who are sensitive
Yeah.
and who are more believable and who are more lovable. Now, would you like to talk about those qualities? I believe that you have a great responsibility there, because we are
Absolutely.
actually, art is a great influencer when it comes to changing certain social norms and behavior. So, would you like to talk about the responsibility that you have taken up very consciously?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's interesting that you mentioned responsibility, because even though I am a millennial author, I mean, technically, I'm like the youngest millennial because I'm born in like early 1996. So I think I'm the youngest millennial. But from what I've noticed on like social media, a lot of the people who read my books seem to be Gen Z, even though the characters in my book may be young millennials just like me. And so that really kind of makes me happy that I'm not writing those toxic, alpha male heroes, because I wouldn't wish that kind of partner or relationship on anybody. And because obviously I've experienced that firsthand in previous relationships, and I don't want to ever go through that again. And so with my book, Match Me If You Can, which I don't have a copy of it right now, unfortunately, but it has a really pretty cover. So if you want to Google it, please do that.
No, they can just go and buy it from the store.
No, if you want to Google it right now, you should do that because it's really pretty. The cover's gorgeous. Anyway, so I think it's one thing I always like to say is that I think romance novels have the power to change the world. And often when I say this, the literary connoisseurs will just laugh at me or they'll roll their eyes. But I truly feel like love and romantic love is such an important force in today's society, in just today's world. And if you don't write it authentically, if you don't write it from a place of, love and just wanting the other person to feel loved and feel cherished, then it's just going to turn out like those Bollywood movies where it's like the chase and the games and all of that. And I really, really hope that Gen Z or even younger millennials like myself don't have to go through that chase and those games and all of those things that we are made to think that that's what dating is, that's what love is. And it's a really big responsibility, I think, to write romance novels, because, or even write fiction of any kind, because you may think, yeah, this is fiction, no one's gonna follow it like it's the Bible, but you'd be surprised. People do. People look at these fictional characters and they think of them as their heroes. They think of them as inspiration and icons. So it's really important, I think, for me, and I'm hoping for every romance author out there to write fiction that is not just realistic in terms of, yeah, sometimes love doesn't work out, but hey, guess what? sometimes it does work out in the best way possible with these amazing people, regardless of gender, regardless of who they are, who they love. And that's what I want to write, and that's what I hope I get to write every day for the rest of my life. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Claire, you have brought up a very important point called self-love, which is, I think, very underrated and very much required. However, there's a thin line between self-love and selfishness. Would you like to draw the terms of self-love and tell us how to do it as it appears in your book?
Definitely. Yes, in fact, there are a lot of sayings now. I mean, we're all on Instagram. People say, oh, I will be selfish, so I'll have some time for myself. And that phrase has been thrown around endlessly. But I do believe it's, it's so much different. Selfishness, self absorption, even, is not the same at all as self love. Self love is actually humbling. It's being humble enough to to and being self love more than humility. Self love is actually compassion, and I think this is the most important thing, that we be compassionate not only for others but actually first for ourselves. So I think a lot of my novels exhibit this compassion, and I also just something like, there was a point in my life even when I said, okay, I want to love myself. But how? Really? How? Is it spa services? Is it having a facial? Is it having like a good drink or whatever? But it's more than that. There was a point in my life I had no idea how to love myself. But the theme of compassion came up, and I think that's it. You just need to be compassionate to yourself first. And that's what's compassion. Compassion is being kind to yourself. Compassion is, um, it's mostly that. It's holding your own hand. And so I think, and so that's love. And I don't know, selfishness is is completely different. Selfishness is not taking into account anybody else except yourself for a completely different reason. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. One question that I have for both of you, and this is in context of your books. So, Swati first. Love is an overwhelming emotion. There are times when you are not in control of yourself. However, even that overwhelming emotion guiding you, even when you are under that whirlwind, there are two kinds of people. One who believes that they are supposed to be more giving in love, and second who believe that they are supposed to acquire, have control. In your books, do you find the presence of both of these to be able to compare the two kinds of love and draw some kind of inference, or how have you dealt with this overwhelmingness in love?
So, in my opinion, and this might be, something that a lot of people don't agree with, might be an unpopular opinion. I don't think love should feel overwhelming. I think love should feel safe. I don't necessarily think love is like butterflies in the stomach. I think love is this sense of, calm, and a sense of like feeling like you're where you belong, you're at home. When we go to a concert, we might feel this anticipation and the sense of like, oh my God, the artist is going to come on stage. But when you come back home and you kick off your, shoes, and, in the case of women, you take off your bra, and you just feel like, oh, I feel so relaxed right now. I think that is what love should feel like, at least for me, and definitely how I want love to feel for my characters in my books as well. And I think, I don't think in terms of the giving and, acquiring or giving and taking thing, I like to think that we are all, being human beings and being flawed people, we are all, at some point in our lives, we are takers, some point in our lives, we are givers. And hopefully in the right relationship, you will be both. When you have something to give, the person that you're in love with will be there to take it. And when you need something from them, they'll be there to give it to you. And that is absolutely what I want to write, and what I hope for every single person in this audience as well. That's the kind of love I think the world needs more of. Overwhelming love is, it's great, but I think overwhelm can only last for so much time. It's like I struggle with anxiety, and my therapist always tells me anxiety will eventually pass. Even if it feels like in the moment this is the biggest fear I have in my life and nothing's gonna fix this, it passes. But that sense of home, that sense of comfort, that is something that I hope we can all carry with ourselves forever, and that's to me what love needs to feel like.
Amazing. Claire, would you like to put your thoughts into this?
Well, I agree, of course, with Swati about overwhelming love. I mean, that should be a thing of the past.
Absolutely.
Definitely, love should feel safe. Definitely, love should feel that you are your best self. And yeah, I think that is my take on that. Love should bring out the best in you. And if it takes another person to help you achieve that, then perfect. You've found a great kind of love.
Amazing. Swati and Claire, I would invite you to read a small portion from your books before we go ahead.
Claire, do you want me to go first? All right. So I don't have a copy of my book with me, sadly, so I'm going to read from the Kindle app on my phone. So a little bit of context for this scene is this is from this. Oh, you have my book. Oh my God. Thank you so much. Thank you very,
Why don't
very
you just
much.
tell us your names loudly? Trishita. Anvesh and Trishita.
Nice
Thanks
to
a
meet
lot.
you guys. Thank you so much. All right. So this is from chapter 2, and it's just a small scene. So this scene I want to share because this is kind of like very representative, I think, of Jia and Jaiman, the main characters of my book, their relationship. And I think it's, kind of falls into your giver and taker question as well. Just because in this scene, Jaiman, who owns a pub and he's like a mixologist, he always prepares these like really fancy drinks, like customized drinks that he comes up with on his own, and then he asks Jia to taste test them and give him like her feedback. So in this scene, we're just gonna kind of read the scene where that's what's happening, and this is chapter 2 of the book. So yeah. Jay's pub was fairly deserted for a Friday night, which felt like a sucker punch to the gut. Jaiman would have to step up his game and fast. The senior citizens and the kamikaze shot-loving women from earlier were still there, along with one or two mimosa employees, but the place was mostly empty. Even Ishan was gone. Mumbling a curse under his breath, Jaiman got to work on his new drink recipes while Jia said hi to her co-workers. When she returned, she was the only customer at the bar. Jaiman slid the first cocktail in front of her, watching as her cynical eyes took in the highball glass filled halfway with the brown drink, garnished with a lime wedge and candied ginger. A drop of condensation trickled down the glass onto the branded Jay's Pub coaster. Jia took a sharp inhale and peered at Jaiman, her dark brown eyes adorable and curious as always. What's in this? You know I won't tell you until you take a sip, he teased. He rested his weight on his elbows on the bar counter and grinned. With a sigh, Jia picked up the glass and tentatively touched the drink to her lips. After a few seconds, she took a bigger gulp, set the glass down, and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. B+. What's in it? Jaiman took the glass from her hands, relishing in the slight contact their fingers made, and held his concoction out proudly. Ginger, lime, maple syrup, rum, club soda, still mulling over a name for it. She nodded, then snatched the glass back and took one more sip before pushing it aside. Good effort. What's next? Easy, Tiger, he said, chuckling. He took his time mixing and pouring the second of the two drinks he had come up with last night when he woke from dreams of recipes interspersed with nightmares of his pub going under. After she drank some water to cleanse her palate, Jia swirled the next glass around in her hand, squinting at the contents of the margarita. Colored baby pink and rimmed with Jaiman's favorite Himalayan pink salt, the whipped rose was sure to blow her mind. It was inspired by her signature scent, after all. Smells rosy, she mused, and took a drink. Her expression changed with every sip, and she had finished the drink in one go before Jaiman could tell her to slow down. Her cheeks were, funnily enough, rose pink, her breathing shaky, and her eyes glazed, as though the drink had already made its way into her veins and intoxicated her the way she intoxicated him. Wow, she breathed. It sent tingles down Jaiman's back because the last time he remembered her saying that word like that was a year ago, the night of Tanu's wedding, when he had finally mustered up the courage to kiss her, right before she burst into tears and ran away. He leaned across the counter and murmured, "You like the drink?" "I love it," she said, licking her lips. A plus. What's in it? Tequila, whipped cream vodka, triple sec, pink lemonade, and rose syrup with a Himalayan salt rim. The whipped rose. It's perfect. Jia handed the glass back to him. "I want another." Jaiman laughed in her face. "We both know you get the worst hangovers, and this is a potent drink. Come on," he said as he strode out from behind the counter. "I'll drive you home." "I could call an Uber," she started, but Jaiman placed his hands on the soft, dusky skin of her bare shoulders and steered her to the exit. After he checked to make sure the patrons and staff were all good, they got into his car, and Jia huffed out a breath as he drove. "What?" he asked, laughing. "Why are you so nice?" she demanded. "It makes it so hard to hate you." "Don't hate me then," he said, making a right turn and then stopping promptly in the nighttime Mumbai traffic. Jia whispered something he couldn't quite catch. By the time he shot her a look, she had closed her eyes, resting her head against the window. Jaiman would bet his culinary degree that she was only pretending to be asleep. "Gosh, Jia," he thought, "I wish I knew what goes on in that mind of yours." But he knew better than to say anything. Jia Deshpande was a tough nut to crack. He had spent nearly 3 decades of his life trying to figure her out, and he was sure the next three would go by without him having a single clue. He still remembered that perfect night of Tanu's wedding. How could he forget the heat of Jia's skin beneath his hands, the softness of her ruby-painted lips against his, or the way she had moaned into his mouth? That kiss ended mere seconds after it began. She had begged him to never again discuss the unfortunate incident, as she had put it. So, he hadn't. He had continued the charade that nothing had happened between them, and nothing ever would. And so had she. She probably never thought about it anymore, but Jaiman would die with that bittersweet memory seared into his mind. Maybe that was as much of Jia Deshpande as he would get in this lifetime. And maybe that would have to be enough. Yeah, that's the scene.
Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause?
Thank
Yes.
you.
Claire, please go ahead.
First of all, question, I was just at the session before this. Who among you attended the session before this? None? Oh, you. Okay, I'm going to read my favorite passage, as you know. So, I will read a very, very short excerpt, but I feel this encapsulates really what love is and what love can drive you to do. And this is I wrote this literary fiction novel published just last year, and it's my latest novel, and it's about three characters. Three characters who have very diverse backgrounds, but who want to start over, and they do all sorts of things to achieve this. And one character there is called Marina. She's actually a Filipino Singaporean, and she has succeeded in her career, in moving, in financially, but she yearns for connection. In other words, she longs for love. And obviously, she still hasn't gotten it, and this is how she acts out. Okay. The chapter is called Accomplice. Everyone wants a lover, but what they really need is an accomplice. Someone who thinks you're not crazy for doing something random, like standing in front of a closed museum in the dark, waiting for a stranger you've just met, waiting for him to pick you up, to bring you to a hotel, where, as he promised, you would learn the language of the Vietnamese. Someone like Vin, maybe, who'd come up with this silly secret code for sex. For what else was there to do inside the hotel room? It was Marina who told him earlier that evening, about wanting to learn Vietnamese. But it was he who instructed her to take a taxi from her five-star resort, travel the 40-minute distance, and alight in front of Hui's Royal Museum of Antiquities along Lechuk. Wait for him, he said, and he would come. She stood under a busted street lamp, hidden in the shadows, despite which she felt exposed, vulnerable, a little unsafe. It was already 10 o'clock, and the streets in this part of Hue City were deserted, and she was supposed to be somewhere else or in bed because God knows how her 40-year-old body needed that sleep. But never mind all that. Never mind that she had only met Vin that very day. She had said yes because she had been looking for an accomplice all her life. Thank you.
Audience, I will take both the authors through another quick round of questions, and after that, I will open the session for audience questions. I would request that the questions are kind, and I would also request that the questions are reflective of the portions that they read out. It will be wonderful for them to understand how the audience is taking their work of art. So I will just take them through another round of questions, and then we come to you. Swati, wherever there is love, there is heartbreak. In your book, through your characters, how do you show the behavior or the expected behavior or probably the spontaneous behavior of heartbreak?
All right, so I wish I could go into detail in this question, but that would spoil a lot of the things in the book. But I think when it comes to like love and heartbreak, a lot of the things that my characters do, because at the end of the day, they are flawed, human, realistic characters, is that they act out in ways that I don't think people should. But then again, as my therapist says, there's no such thing as a should. We do what we do. So, for example, in my book, right, Jeman, whose point of view chapter I just read out of, he has loved Jia for pretty much his whole life. And he's like, she probably just sees me as this guy she once kissed, but nothing happened beyond that. And so he's kind of learned to deal with heartbreak in like his own like soft, sort of quiet way, where he's just pushed down his feelings and he's like, I'll take whatever I can get from her, even if that's friendship, even if that's frenemy vibes every now and then, even if that's a fight every now and then, or her coming in and tasting his drinks and giving him feedback on those. So for him, heartbreak is just a daily routine because he's just kind of taken that pain and lived with it. But Jia, on the other hand, she's this, matchmaker who's like obsessed with this idea of realistic love, which is the same kind of love that I preach, which is the non-toxic love, the love that you choose, the love that doesn't say you're meant to be together, but the love that says you choose to be together, you decide to be together, because that is what a committed relationship full of love actually looks like. And she believes that she has never been in love. So when she does actually experience heartbreak in this book, she does do some like really stupid things. Not stupid in the sense of like, rebounding with anybody else per se, but she does decide to do drastic things like, well, I won't spoil it for you. But I think Jia has been a very sort of brash, like impulsive character. And I think one of the reasons my Goodreads rating is not as high as I hoped it would be is because most readers do not like Jia. Which is fine because the book is an adaptation of Jane Austen's book Emma, and she is not meant to be likable. And everyone's like, Jayman is the ultimate book boyfriend because he's, so many green flags. But unfortunately, I can also tell you from personal experience that when, someone's heart breaks, we do stupid things. I have done that myself. I don't know if this answered your question in any way, but yeah, that's pretty much it. The TLDR, too long, didn't read version is when you're in heartbreak, you do stupid things, but hopefully not stupid, so stupid that you can't get out of them. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to extend that question to you along with one sentence, adding one sentence, that I was talking to her about heartbreak between two individuals. That question is extended for you, along with another point that even when it is self love, we often don't stand up by ourselves. That is a heartbreak that we have, and we have a complaint against ourselves that why didn't I? And that complaint remains. I mean, you can forget whatever someone else has done to you, but it's very difficult to forgive what you have done to yourself. Please.
Thank you, Coral, for letting me answer this question because, I apologize if I vacillate between two books, but heartbreak, my other book, Sudden Superstar, is all about heartbreak. And yes, heartbroken people do wild things. They do drastic things. For me, my character here, she's called Arya. She had just broken up with her boyfriend. She moves countries. And that in itself is super, it's hard. I mean, my character just ups and leaves everything behind and leaves the comfortable life she has in Manila and moves to Singapore just because of a man. And so definitely, and then she goes on to have a great job, have a good boss, have all the nice things in life, but she finds herself still not over the breakup. And I think this is the point that I wanted to bring up in my book, that every one of us, we have different paths of getting over someone. And I feel that I've been reading a lot of books wherein, okay, you break up and then have this grieving period and then you start over again. But I don't know, it didn't feel like that in real life at all. I mean, I've also had breakups and they felt terrible and they felt like that. So, and I don't know. So that's why I wanted to write this book because I wanted to show readers also that you can have everything in life, but not be happy still, and still get and still not get over someone. And this, so that is the story of this. Plus, what happens in my character here is, um, I'm assuming every one of us has social media. Okay, she goes viral. So when she goes viral, she's still dealing with the breakup. Now what? So that is the whole thing that's going on in this book. As for your other question about breaking up with yourself, yeah, definitely. This book, all my books actually, they're about forgiveness. It's really important, and I also want to drive that point. There are things we do, going out with this guy, loving this person. Those were just things that we knew back then. Those were the only things we knew how to do. And so it's important to realize actually and to accept they are done. It's important to forgive yourself with that kind of mindset in mind, in your head, that was the only way you knew how to cope. How else did you? So the only way to do is just forgive yourself. Then we have spent so many years, months, days, weeks being unkind to ourselves, scolding ourselves for things we have done in the past. But forgiveness is important, and you can start over now, right? Later, tomorrow, in the next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear. Any questions from the audience? Yes, please. There are two there. Oh, okay. Please go ahead and then we'll go there.
Hi, my name is Anvesh, and my question is for both of the authors. That is, according to you, the love stories that we read nowadays, both for Indian and abroad, what kind of love stories do people like to read more? Which I mean is, we have love stories like Grey, 50 Shades of Light, that kind of love story, dark romance basically. And then we also have books where it's very, Nicholas Sparks types. so this is the thing I'm trying to say. So right now, giving to the millennial generation that we have, what kind of love story is more relatable to them? Because I used to read love stories when I was a little bit younger. I started off with Nicholas Sparks. Then the dark romances came, and just a personal opinion, it became very, graphic and everything. So, what's your take on it?
I think I'll answer first. No, yeah, I've been talking with a lot of readers in Philippines, in Singapore, Malaysia, all over Southeast Asia. So I can, so what I've noticed is they, now they're all talking about cozy romances. And as you, Swati, was saying earlier, the non-toxic male, no? Or the non-toxic co-protagonist. So I think not exactly a trend, but it's just that maybe that is what's needed at this time instead of graphic, uh, hard and spicy, even spicy love stories. Maybe what people are clamoring for now are the cozy ones, the ones that make you feel good. And this means a green flag character, a red flag turned green flag protagonist. And so that's why. And also another thing, and I really don't know what your take on this. I feel a lot of readers prefer neat endings. Neat endings. Endings that, yeah, that tie up nicely.
The happily ever after ending.
Sort of. Or something like, something that leaves them, yeah, that something that feels conclusive, that gives them
Hope.
closure.
Yeah, and hope and everything.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I hope I answered it
Yes, ma'am,
somehow.
absolutely.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I feel like, of course, there's always going to be an audience for every kind of book, as long as you market it properly. As long as you find, a good publicist or a good marketing person for your book, it will reach audiences, no matter what you've written, in most cases, of course. So I think, like Claire said, I think these, cozy, feel-good romances are definitely making a comeback. And from what I have noticed, just, being an author, published in both US and India, in my experience, I think the dark romance, the mafia romances are more popular in like the self-published, the Kindle Unlimited sphere versus the traditional publishing, with Penguin or HarperCollins or whichever other big five publishing houses, where they're more into like the feel-good romances where the main characters may or may not be completely green flag characters, but they're relatable. They're not like some mafia lord who's gonna kidnap you and then give you the best night of your life and boom, you're in love with him. That might not really be published by a Penguin or HarperCollins anytime soon, at least not in India, maybe. Who knows what the future might bring. But as of now, I think there's an audience for every kind of book. I think what matters is, especially if you're asking in the perspective of, I don't know if you are asking as, whether something you want to write eventually. If that's the case, then just write what you're good at and what you like reading. I think that's what works best, if that was what you were trying to gauge. But if you're a reader, just, read what you want. I think reading should be fun. A lot of people feel like reading should be educational. And of course, I think even romance novels are educational because they teach you the right, in my opinion, the right way to receive love and to give love. Thank you. But I don't think, reading always has to be just the classic self-help book, how to win friends and influence people or whatever, the monk who sold his Ferrari. Like those are, I'm sure those are great books, but sometimes a match me if you can is also what you need. So yeah, shameless self-promotion, but yeah.
Okay, Swati, I'm asking you this question not only because I'm a Penguin publicist, but it comes from the fact that you were also here for the session right before this, where we were
Yeah.
talking a little about cultural assimilation. And what is very interesting about your journey specifically is that you, as you rightfully mentioned right before this, that you're published not just in India but also at the same time simultaneously in the US. In fact, first in the US and then in India,
Yeah.
if I've gotten that right. So the question is that a lot of writers today, especially romance writers, we have some of them who you're sharing stage with after this. They so what makes a story truly global in that sense? Because I've read your book, because I do read romances, and I felt that it's unabashedly desi. It's promoted like that, but yet it was picked up by a US publisher, and they felt that there is a need for a story like this. However, we have some of other authors in India, romance writers who've written romances far before you have come into the picture, and they haven't had the chance to that kind of a breakthrough in the in the Western market and in the Western world. So, what kind of sets apart your story that will appeal not just to India but also to a global readership? Thank you.
That's actually a great question. So thank you for that. So I'm going to answer this in two parts. One from the publishing business side of things, and the other from the the story and what makes the story. Like you said, it's unabashedly desi, but at the same time, it's appeal to a lot of white readers as well as readers of color across the globe. So, in terms of the publishing business side, well, first of all, I signed with a literary agent who was in New York. So that obviously helped me get to a US publisher a lot easier. And on the other side of the, what makes my story different from these other authors who I'll be sharing the stage with tomorrow, Anuja Chauhan, Durjay Datta, who might not have gotten that, whose books might not have gotten picked up in the US as much yet. I don't think there's a difference per se in how they've written their books and how I've written my books. I think my strategy from the beginning was to get published in the US because we have to fill our bellies, and I was like, there's more money there and there's a bigger audience there, and I knew that if you publish a book in the US, it inevitably comes to India, but it might not always be the other way around. So, of course, when I wrote this book, there are a few instances in this book where, as some of you who might have read the book, as Indians living in India might have noticed, there's a few moments where I've over-explained certain things. Like, I explained what a vada is, or I've explained, what a dosa is, or something of that sort. And the reason I had to do that was so it would be palatable to readers around the world, which I don't think you would find that in, books by Indian authors who are published first in India. And I think that's just a choice in, editorial stylistic choice. I could have pushed for my editor in the US to, and asked them to not include that and just said, they can Google it if they want. And I know people can Google it if they want, but I was like, let me just keep that in there because, people often are lazy and they don't Google things. I know I am guilty of doing that. I don't think there's a difference in how I've written this book as much as it's just how I decided to go about my publishing journey. I think at the end of the day, it's like, my thing was go big or go home. I think I tried to go big by publishing in the US first, and hopefully that works out well for me in the years to come. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Shraddha. I actually have two questions, one for each, if it's fine by you. So I would start with Claire, ma'am. Ma'am, just a few moments back, you said how you feel that happy endings are what is working more. So I always assumed that, like, for people like me, teenagers especially, books have been like an escapism. So you feel that is the mentality because of which the happy endings work? Like, what is your insights on this?
Thank you for that question. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's funny because when I write stories, I actually start with endings. And I'm not really a neat ender. I have had editors who have told me, Claire, you must end with a kiss. Things like that with my other books. And so I feel that people, even if they don't admit it, they still want that neat ending. I feel it's just that we're all just we all just want to feel good. We always search for that thing that will help us feel better. And this is one of them. We read books to feel better, and we feel even better with this kind of conclusive ending. And as for escapism, definitely, we read books to escape and to take us on a ride, to take us to a different place. And that ending just is the icing on the cake. So I feel it's that. I feel like, especially at this time, so many things are going on in the world. We want to feel better. So we search for that neat, nice, conclusive ending. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ma'am, my second question is from you. Ma'am, just a few while back, you were talking about your male lead, like how he is a total green flag, which we would call in our language, Gen Z lingo. So, ma'am, you just talked about, I'm sure that in the book, he might have had a whole character development, a whole roller coaster journey. But you also talked about how every day was a heartbreak for him, kind of thing. So, if in real life that was the scenario for any person, what would be your tip be then? Would you say to like chase, or what would be your insight on it?
This is interesting because I mean I'm the one who wrote German, and it's like now I'm giving him advice, or him or an equivalent of him. I would definitely say do not chase, and he doesn't chase her in the book at all. He's just like I've made my peace with it, and there's actually like a moment in the book where she actually leans in to kiss him, and he's like, he pushes her away because he knows in that moment that it's not the right time for them. I won't spoil that scene for you, but anyway. So I think if someone is going through something like that, where they're like, they have these unrequited feelings to someone and they don't know what to do about it, my first suggestion to them would be just try to move on if you can. And he does try throughout the book, he does. And if it doesn't work out, well, I mean, at least you gave it a shot, like first thing would be obviously shoot your shot with the person you like. If that doesn't work out, try to move on. If that also doesn't work out, another tip I would have given him in the book, if I wasn't writing the book, was try to go to a therapist, because therapy has changed my life, and that I recommend that to everyone for every single thing. But yeah, I don't think like unrequited love is always a good thing. I think sometimes we over romanticize it, but at the end of the day, if someone doesn't feel that way about you, just try to move on. There's there's billions of other people in the world. You will find your match. In my case, his match just happened to be the girl he was unrequitedly in love with, but may not happen for everyone. Life is not always a romance novel. But I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Swati and Claire, and thank you to the audience who decided to spend time here and listen out to the authors. Probably all of you understand that we spend a lot of lonely and thankless time authoring books. And the hard work is now available in printed, paperback or hardcover formats in the bookstore. So make a dash out, get them on your bag if you don't have it already.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for being here. And yeah, thank you, Koral, for such great moderating. Thank you.